This is A Race for the Times. Thank you for joining us for this important hour of information we about to smack to your dome.
So now what I'd like to do is to have at least one representative from each organization. I'm going to say what organizations I'm a part of. I co-founded Sankofa Cultural Institute in 1999 with my wife, and I am representing Sankofa Cultural Institute that did very many events surrounding jazz music here in the Bay Area, rather just here in Oakland, rather, and in West Oakland specifically and East Oakland specifically. I also taught capoeira as a rite of passage program for Black youth underneath Sankofa Cultural Institute. I'm also part of the Oakland Maroons Art Collective. We curated the 50-year anniversary art show that some of you may have seen over here at the Joyce Gordon Gallery, where we also created the Black Panther Party 10-point program coloring book for the youth and gave those out. So I'm gonna keep that real short. Is Reefa in the room? Okay. Brother West, come on up here and tell us about Race for the Times. And put it in historical context, you know.
Why do you say historical context? Okay, me and this brother over there, we're Race for the Times. We got together in 1992. We started off in radio. We actually had to take over our college radio station to get Black programming on the air. Ever since then, we've been documenting our people. Basically, we took the task of documenting the movement in many different ways. So one of the things we're looking forward to is we're going to be releasing a documentary soon based on a lot of things we've covered. There will be a clip I think we'll show a little bit later. Has a lot of our giants from Kwame Ture, Khalil Muhammad, musician, artists, Last Poets, Watch Prophets, Dead Prez, Public Enemy. So that'll be coming out soon. One thing I want to, don't forget, when you walk in, there's 2 QR codes on the table right there. If you scan that, you can get connected to African United Front, Oakland's Instagram. We're broadcasting this right now on a radio station, which is Black Radio, which are flyers up there at the front. And our film is called A Race for the Time. So all those are all on Instagram. So I think that's about it. Who's next? Yeah, go ahead.
There's a little bit of feedback actually. Okay. Switch mics. Test. Assalamu alaikum. Black power. All power to the people. Pan-Africanism or death. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place. Right on. So my name is Reefa. Some of you guys might be going, what kind of name is that? REFA is an acronym. It stands for Revolutionary Educator for Africa. I'm a muralist, street artist, and one of the propagandists of the vanguard for this time. We have an organization called Aerosol. We've been together for over 20 years, and I've been doing this type of work for almost 40 years here in the Bay Area. Our murals are about transforming the visual landscape of the struggling Black community, raising our political and social awareness about things conducive to our well-being. In a nutshell, we have chapters all across this country, including international chapters in Europe and most notably in West Africa, Senegal in particular. Many of the artists that work with us are also raising the awareness of Africans on the continent about the struggles for liberation and self-determination in the Sahel. You guys are familiar with the movement going on in Burkina Faso? Some of our members are there. And some of the members in our organization from Senegal have come to Oakland to work with us on some of the murals that we do here in the town. Some of you may have noticed when you drive through Oakland, you'll see a big Black Panther on a blue background. It'll have one of the 10 points from the 10-point program. Anybody here ever seen one of those? Right on. That's some of the community work that we do. We understand that we cannot leave it to our sworn historical enemies, and in this case, OUSD, to educate our children. If they won't, what did they say? If they don't treat you right, they won't teach you right. So we understand that it is our responsibility as the visual vanguard to get out into the neighborhoods and the community, meet our people where they're at, and raise them to the risen perpendicular with this visual culture that we go directly to create. And it's a dialogue that we have with the community too. We don't just drop in the parachute and be like, this is what we're doing. We talk to the people. We find out what is the need here. What should we be talking about? What point is most applicable in this area? We might do point number 4. We want decent housing and shelter fit for human beings. And that's more relevant now than when it was written in 1966. But we also know that the children that are graduating, and some are not, through these public schools are not getting that information. So this is some of the work that we do in correlation with the AUF. We are the visual art component of that, and we are inviting more artists from our community to get involved and get organized. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, or you know someone who may be interested in doing that type of work, please have them get in touch with us. If they're not interested in joining our organization, maybe we can collaborate and just do something together. But that is the nature of the work that we do. Some of us are embedded in the schools. So even though I got a side eye for OUSD, I work there. Sometimes we got to go behind enemy lines. We can't just wait till we have independent education for Black people, for African people. That's what I want. But some of our people have not arrived there yet, and we have to go to where they are. And that's some of the work that we do. So we do paint murals in the Oakland Unified School District. We did a few here in West Oakland at Martin Luther King, at Cole. We've done work over at Mac and at Tech. And we're trying to get as much work as we can up there and to inspire and plant seeds. The same way the Black Panther Party planted seeds in the community and young people for us to even be here today, is we're working in that same tradition. So with that being said, I'm going to land the plane there. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Another one of the members of the African United Front Oakland is the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And we'll have Brother Nidamu here to tell us briefly about the party and what's coming up.
Warmest African greetings to all of you this evening. My name is Nidamu Kuchaza, and I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And the AAPRP was created in 1968 by Kwame Nkrumah. And we are an international organization. We're anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist. The objective of the All African People's Revolutionary Party is what we call Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. And this is extremely important because while Africa may look like it's free in terms of, some African governments, and having an army, a flag, in essence, we don't control Africa. We don't control the resources of Africa, because if we did, we would not be living in the conditions in which we are. So it's important to understand that Africa is not free. And also, when we talk about the unification, the only hope for us as African people is the unification of Africa. Kwame Nkrumah, who led Ghana to independence in 1958, he said that the independence of Ghana meant nothing unless the rest of Africa was free. And we can still see that today, because imperialism continues to devastate us, steal our resources, and that's because we're not unified. And lastly, when we talk about Africa being under scientific socialism, we need an economic system that meets the needs of the masses of the people. Clearly, capitalism is not that system. Socialism is our answer in terms of the richest, vast resources of Africa can be used for our people at home and around the world. So as I close out, I just wanted to mention that we are having our annual African Liberation Day celebration here in Oakland. It will be the 23rd of May, and it's going to be at the Eastside Arts Alliance venue, and it'll be from 1 to 4. There's flyers on the table you can pick up, but please, if you can, please come out to our celebration and learn more about the work of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Thank you.
Before I move on to the next organization, I want to acknowledge a couple of people in the room. We have DJ Sinai at the back of the room who's going to be curating some of the, the music you're hearing in between, like transitions between speakers, et cetera, and so forth. And this excellent slide presentation and some of the music that you're hearing is coming from a playlist that was created by the brothers here at Blacks Radio and Race for the Times, who just came up here just a moment ago. In a moment, you'll be seeing some solidarity statements that were edited and created by them, which is, exemplary. They've been doing some MVP work here. I want to also direct people to the entranceway there. There's a QR code, a paper with a QR code on it. That's for our Instagram page, the African United Front Oakland's Instagram page. Please go there, please follow us so that the next event, because there's going to be a next one similar to this, you'll know when those are coming up, and you'll get to see some of these solidarity statements that are coming literally from the continent, the Caribbean, and all parts of the U.S., by some really, really smart people. So having said that, I want to mention, I'll mention one brother who is not here right now. He's out of the country. He's also part of the African United Front, representing his organization, the Haitian Action Committee. And I'm sure that some people in the room have heard of Pierre Lavoisier. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That brother's out doing the work right now, so he's outside the country and couldn't make it to the event tonight, but he was one of the key organizers for this event. I also like to, I have the honor, really, of mentioning that the Nation of Islam Mosque number 26 is in the room, and if and if Minister Abdul would like to say something briefly about that. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
We are here, of course, on behalf of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It is our honor to be here with you and a part of the African United Front. I'm reminded before I sat down that many years ago I sat with Kwame Ture right here down the street somewhere at a restaurant. And he made certain to remind me that he went to Minister Farrakhan in the early 1980s or late 1970s with a cover story of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad calling for a Black United Front. And he handed it to Minister Farrakhan as a reminder of what we now see as his role, having brought together our people for so many reasons, for so many causes throughout the years. So you're always welcome to drop by and see us on Foothill in East Oakland at Fairfax any given Sunday morning. Consider it your home. Thank you.
All right. One more person in the room here I'm gonna bring up briefly is Brother Jabari here. He's the West Coast representative, you can correct me, for the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the organization founded by Marcus Garvey. So, brother, you can come up and tell us.
The Race First family. My name is Jabari Garvey Shaw. I'm a district commissioner for the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League Rehabilitation Committee. So the organization been going on since Mr. Garvey started it and came here in 1916, and we still pushing for it. That's what the African United Front is about, Garveyism, us taking back Africa, taking back the resources, and us coming together. So we all over. We got divisions in Nigeria, divisions in Ghana, the Gambia, Kenya. We developing a division in South Africa. We have people in Ethiopia. We in London. We in where we at DC, Philadelphia. We all over the States. We in the Caribbean islands, Virgin Islands, Jamaica, and Garveyism is alive and well. And we like to say that, you know, we have more Garveyites in this world than we have in the UNIA. You know what I mean? So just keep fighting. Race first politics, man. Keep organizing.
Oh, right on. Okay, I want to make sure I'm checking in with my brothers in the AUF. Have I gotten everybody? I haven't left anybody out? Okay, right on. How could I forget my brother, Kumi Raouf? Yeah, come on up here. Come on up here. This cat is really special because I mentioned Sankofa Cultural Institute when I first got up, the organization I founded with my wife. We had some certain ambitions for Sankofa Cultural Institute. And this brother right here came along and realized those are grand visions. This next generation came up. He's doing what it is we were attempting to do, those many years ago. So that's why I'm so, proud of this brother. And he's got a couple of different organizations. I Love Being Black and Traveling Black.
How's everybody doing tonight? All right. As Brother Quadre said, my name is Kumi Raouf. This is my daughter, Azania Raouf. Say hi.
Hi.
I just feel it's important to bring the youth to things like this. A lot of us are already kind of thinking on the same plane, but Baba tells her stuff and she's like, okay, but if she sees all of y'all are thinking the same way and on the same frequency and wavelength, that's very important to me. So thank you just for being here. I represent a movement called I Love Being Black. We focus on positivity, awareness, and action amongst Black people worldwide. I've been fortunate and blessed enough to travel throughout much of the world, a good portion of Africa as well, and I teach people how to do it. And that's part of what it is, because what I realize after going through all these places is we can, the issues that we face, we can tackle them if we just meet each other. We have so many stereotypes built up, us about them, them about us. If we just sit down and break bread with each other, literally first bite, all that's done. So I really encourage people, if you can, which you probably can, if you made it here, you can make it to the continent. And don't think about it like one day, think about it like this is gonna be my next trip. Put that at the top of your list. I won't take up too much time because I'm really looking forward to what we have going on tonight. Bless.
Right on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is just real briefly talk about the notion of cultural intimacy quickly. And then, you know what I may do? I see him over there eating a little bit. But you know how we do. We improvise, man. This is going to be a jazz-like evening. And I'm going to improvise. The Brother Jabari was being humble and didn't also tell you all that he's a poet, So in between me setting up right over here to do the slideshow, I'm going to call him up here to do a poem. Right before doing that, I'm going to talk about the reason why we got this all Black room. The notion of cultural intimacy, the notion that we should have our conversations within our village and just amongst our village members. Oftentimes, what we see in some of these areas, in our contemporary moment, is a kind of pervasive multiculturalism that has invaded, I think, the notion of Black consciousness and these events that happen just via word of mouth and within the village, okay? It's really good that this movie Sinners came out because it illustrated it in a very entertaining and brilliant way. How many people in the room remember the movie Sankofa that came out in 1992? Right, prior to social media, right? I heard about that thing coming to Oakland 6 months before it got here. It was word of mouth. Everybody was talking about, you got to see this, you got to see this, it's deep, you got to go, and everybody knew you were supposed to be in the room when it came to the Grand Lake Theater down there. Everybody knew. And the audience was predominantly, Black I think all black, pretty much. And what happens with that is we feel a certain degree of freedom to express ourselves about those things that are intimate to our culture, those things that should stay within the confines of our culture. And so that's why we curated it this way, and every event that you come to by the African United Front, Oakland, will be like this. Okay? All right, so, yeah, right on. Okay, so while I set up to do this little slide presentation, hopefully Brother Jabari can do a short poem piece for us. Oh, okay.
Pimping. Yeah, pimping. Because they've been pimping since pimping before pimping. Not the act of soliciting women, but the fact that our people in the disposition to keep us hoping, praying, and wishing without a pot to piss in, looking like a victim, while pimping Sam taking our tax money to send it to some foreign land. Our people out here suffering from displacement, suffering from starvation, suffering with patience. He says frustration was adjacent to insatiable craving for black liberation in this damnation, from damnation, condemnation. If Malcolm X was here with us today, he'd probably talk about reparations, restoration, recuperation. Personally, I believe the best thing for black people in America is repatriation. Like the Honorable Martin Garvey talks, we need to build a strong black nation. He would talk about the illusion of inclusion, how they never seen us as human, the burning building that he sent you in. He'd talk about who you is, who are we, who are they, who is she. He'd talk about knowledge of self, but he'd tell you to study your enemy. And even knowing his own destiny, he still talk about peace. You know he liked to preach, so he definitely talked about deeds. He asked, if there was no heaven or hell, would you still do the right thing? If you was running late, would you run a red light if you didn't see the police? If you knew it was killing you, would you still drink? Although it make you happy with your families in grief? Is it your right for you to do what you please? How do you distinguish your wants from your needs? If allowed to have another wife, would you still cheat? If you lay down with dogs, do you get up with fleas? Was integration ever one of our needs? He'd have to talk about ICE, the people's right to relief. He said a pregnant protester should never die in the streets. He would say America wrote us a bad check and then they sold us a drink. He'd say, don't say you revolutionary if you don't have no blood to bleed. I got time for another one? Sorry, I took too much time. It's over. Yeah. Do another one or what? Oh, you ready? Okay. Thank y'all for y'all time.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I wanna thank that brother. Yeah. I wanna thank you, Brother Jabari, because I felt like I was getting fed, and just the feeling that I know I'm in a safe place where I can get fed without any debauchery and stuff like that coming from the stage, that kind of language. I want you to know I appreciate that, black man. Yeah. Okay. That can't happen. Right. So what I'm going to do right now is briefly and quickly go through some images that have to do with Malcolm X, Black culture, and transformation. So Malcolm X, jazz, and the Black arts movement. And the reason I'm talking about this in regards to transformation is that people might not be aware that there's this certain generation of the Black folks of the mid 1920s that are coming into their centenary years of their birth. Some really significant names that are coming up here. Amongst them, this year is the 100-year anniversary of Miles Davis's birth. The legendary jazz pianist and Pan-Africanist Randy Weston, another Pan-Africanist activist, poet, and playwright Oscar Brown Jr. Just a couple of years ago, it was Charles Mingus. He was born in 1922. And the two that I'm going to focus on during this quick talk is going to be John Coltrane and Malcolm X. Malcolm's was last year, was the 100-year anniversary of his birth, but John Coltrane's is also this year. And people are probably aware of the Black arts movement in the mid-1960s, this renaissance that happened from, say, the sweet spot was 1965 on through to 1975. And the two patron saints that you'll hear about from most of the poets and musicians are, they say, the inspiration was Coltrane and Malcolm X. And I find it interesting that they're both from, basically the same generation. That generation that was raised by Garveyites, too, basically. Another thing that they share in common is, they both underwent a spiritual transformation, which is, very important. And hopefully, our folks tonight will be discussing that with a little bit more depth. 1926 is also the year, people might not be aware that Carter G. Woodson created African American History Week, which later became Black History Month. That was founded in 1926. This is the 100-year anniversary of that. So Malcolm himself was, deeply influenced by jazz musicians, deeply influenced by that jazz and swing era. He mentions, a bunch of them in his book. He mentions Ella Fitzgerald, Dizzy Gillespie, Fletcher Henderson, Dexter Gordon, Billy Eckstine, all those folks, were folks that he either met or ran into when he was in Harlem. Now, the transformation part was not just for John Coltrane and Malcolm X, but it was also for a generation of folks that came up underneath them who were influenced by those same two things. This book that I'm showing on the cover on the screen right now it was written actually by a white dude that used to be a professor at UC Davis. The reason it is notable is because it has one of the most famous interviews with John Coltrane, where Coltrane says that he sought out to hear Minister Malcolm when he was in, I believe, Philadelphia. And this, as far as I know, it's the only time in print where he mentions Malcolm and says that he, particularly he heard that he was going to be speaking that day, prior to one of his gigs, and he made it a special effort to go down and hear the man. So he was aware of him and was influenced by him. Okay. Coltrane himself undergoes this spiritual transformation in 1967 while he's married to a Muslim wife named Naima. And he writes about it in the liner notes to A Love Supreme, his spiritual transformation. He doesn't necessarily mention Naima. That's in another book by a gentleman named Brent Turner called Soundtrack to a Movement, African American Islam, Jazz, and Black Internationalism. But it's very important to note how influential Naima was on probably Coltrane's most famous and transitional recording, the recording of Love Supreme. He used to listen to her doing her prayers in the morning, and this is where he got the idea and the inspiration and the spiritual transformation to do a piece, a suite based upon a prayer. And those of us who have seen the album, we know that this is a gatefold album. You open this thing up, and inside of it is this prayer that he basically recites on tenor saxophone. It's that deep. Let's just go on here. So in terms of the extension of this type of spiritual transformation, we know that in San Francisco, there's a Coltrane church that basically reveres Coltrane as a saint. This piece of art here by Mark Dukes is one of the devotional pieces that's inside of the spaces where they have these spiritual rituals, basically, the Christian-based rituals, but they revere John Coltrane as a saint and his music as like a spiritual libation. So as you can see here, he's greatly, and the recordings and stuff, I was told this by the brother that founded the church, Archbishop Franzo King. Archbishop Franzo King says these circles that you see at the bottom here, and Mark Dukes told me this as well, the circles that you see at the bottom there are records. The things with the wings on them are records. And so they realized that long after his death, long after he did live recordings, these recordings like A Love Supreme became basically the liturgy and inspiration for people to have their own spiritual transformation. Again, here's another man who was born in 1927. His name is Phil Coran. He was one of the founders of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians in Chicago, from whence I'm wearing a t-shirt with the Art Ensemble of Chicago on it. Some of the greatest musicians from the Black Arts era come through there. Anthony Braxton, George Lewis, Roscoe Mitchell, all of these people that have a great legend surrounding their names in underground loft jazz, avant-garde jazz from that era. He's one of the founding members, and this is one of his earliest recordings in 1968, memorializing Malcolm X. Another is Archie Shepp, the great tenor saxophonist who's still alive now and is in his 80s. He did this piece called Poem for Malcolm in 1972, and that wasn't the first time that he did it. His classic piece, Fire Music, in the mid-1960s, 1968, he did a piece called Malcolm, Malcolm, Semper Malcolm, which also has a long spoken word piece on it dedicated to Malcolm X. That's Archie Shepp. Along with the musicians were the visual artists. These visual artists, one of the most famous of these groups was the Afro-Cobra group. You know, let me make sure I read Afro-Cobra is the African Commune of Bad Relevant Artists, formed in 1968. And so Gerald Wilson was one of the co-founders, and this is one of those jazz-inspired portraits where you see the jazz aesthetic coming up in the visual field with the way he did the abstractions around Malcolm's face. This is common in their group. As another example, this is Nelson Stevens that did a piece of Malcolm entitled Prophet. Okay, Nelson Stevens is well known for having done many of the album covers for Archie Shepp and Marion Brown. This is another gentleman here. Both Archie Shepp and Marion Brown played with John Coltrane on his huge orchestra piece, the legendary recording called Ascension, another spiritually inspired piece. Okay. And finally, I'm gonna end right here with, Malcolm's influence stretched through the music right on into hip hop, as we well know. It's kind of common now to hear snippets of Malcolm's voice coming up in hip hop pieces, or it should be more common now. It was a lot more common in the 80s, but this was the very first one. And I'm wondering if there's folks in the room old enough to remember when this first came out. It was very edgy, and it's a pleasant surprise to hear it come through the radio. Malcolm X, No Sellout. The musician that did it now is this white musician named Keith LeBlanc. But we should note that in 1983, before he released this, he got permission from Sister Betty Shabazz to utilize Malcolm's voice. And as endorsement, there was a sticker on each of the copies in the front that gave indication that Betty Shabazz had endorsed it, because he probably knew people like me wouldn't buy it unless it had the right stamp of approval on it. Okay, so that's just a few of the cited sources that I went through here. I hope I did this quickly enough. I wasn't able to time it and look at the same time. That should be within 10 minutes. And if people have any questions, they can email me at that address. So as we move along here, thank you. Thank you very much. As we move along here, we're coming to one of the things that I've been anticipating for this evening. And that is that our brother, Minister Abdul Sabur Muhammad, is going to do a piece and tell us about Malcolm X and transformation. I'm not sure what the final title of his essay on that is, or his presentation on that is, but it's my honor and pleasure to have the brother minister come and present for us.
In the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God, to whom praise is due forever, the Lord of the worlds, I bear witness that there is no God but He, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His messenger. I am a student of the teaching of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I could never thank Allah enough for raising for the Black man and woman of America His messenger, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As a young man in the classroom of God, too young to have experienced him in person, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us in 1975. But I'm reminded that in the scripture of Jesus, he would say that another one would come, the Comforter, a spirit of truth that would guide us into all truth. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad prayed for someone to help him. Allah answered his prayer and gave him the man that has been on his post now for 71 years. He is my teacher, friend, warner, and guide, and yours. He is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's in their names that I greet you all in peace. We say it in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. First, I want to thank Brother Quadro for his warm opening and all my brothers of the African United Front here in Oakland. My family wonders why I'm rushing around with my iPad on a Saturday morning when I should be doing Saturday morning things. Well, it's because there's no more important Saturday morning thing to do than to work toward the unity of our people here in Oakland and all over the world. Before I speak any words, I want to thank our elder here, my brother who served in the Oakland City Council when I arrived here in 1991. He was working it out. And he worked it out further at Soul Beat Television. Only those that are old enough appreciate Soul Beat Television. And that's Brother Leo Bazile. Thank you, Brother Leo, for joining us. I wanted to talk with you about the transformation of Malcolm X. And you should know that as we're speaking about his transformation, we're also speaking about each and every one of ours. For Brother Malcolm is our brother. For those that may question, because you've heard through the years the controversy surrounding the assassination of Malcolm X and what was his relationship with the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let me clear that up very quickly by saying that in 1965, our brother was a victim of a concerted effort of the counterintelligence program of the FBI. There were persons who were arrested for his assassination, some of whom were entirely innocent. And that one, Talmadge Hayer, who was guilty, testified in court who were participants with him in the murder of Malcolm X, but because the enemy thought that they could take down two birds with one stone, they went out and arrested innocent members of the Nation of Islam. And even while it is now a fact that the family of Malcolm X is suing the city of New York, the police department of New York, the CIA and the FBI for the murder of Malcolm X, and standing by their side are members and leadership of the Nation of Islam. I was blessed to be a part of the Million Man March, and I think my brother Leo was there as well. And one of the great joys for me was to watch as the prominent women who spoke at the Million Man March included a wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Mother Tanetta Muhammad, but right by her side is the wife of Malcolm X and some of his daughters who were at the Million Man March with us. And unreported by most is the fact that on May the 6th of 1995, there was a public reunion meeting between Betty Shabazz, her children, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, his children, family, and nation, that was broadcast all over the world, live from the Apollo Theater. And Dr. Betty had only one request of Minister Farrakhan at that event. Her request of Minister Farrakhan is, would you call my husband brother again? And do you know, from that time to this, the only thing you have ever heard Minister Farrakhan call Brother Malcolm X is brother. What was their relationship? Brother Malcolm was Minister Farrakhan's first minister in New York City. Brother Malcolm was responsible for the teaching and training of many of the ministers in the Nation of Islam. For as a student of the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his star rose quickly from the time he got out of jail, which I think was 1952. He very quickly landed assignments in the ministry. And not only did he become the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's best minister, exemplary minister, model of ministry, but he also was his hardest worker and became his national spokesman. Were it not for his help to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we don't know, and we can't undo or rewrite history, so we don't have to what if anything. But the best thing that we can do is say all praises are due to Allah and give credit to Allah and those working on his behalf where credit is due. Tonight, we want to talk about transformation. Now, by training and assignment, I'm a student in the ministry class of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Please don't be offended if you hear a scripture, because it's for you. I would be offended if I thought everything came from a white man hanging on a cross. But what I have to share with you is not from a white man hanging from a cross, because as a people, we are black men and women who've hung from crosses long enough to know that if anyone was hung, it was one of us. It is written in the scripture in the book of Romans, be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. When a people are in need of transformation, it's not because they're on a right course. They're on a course that can certainly be improved ultimately to reach the ultimate objective, which is perfection in God. But each of us are born into the world in the best mold. So before we get to transformation, we have to look at formation. How were we made? What were we made to become? Allah says in the Holy Quran in the 95th surah, surely we created man in the best make. We have a lesson that the brothers are trained in. And if I were to ask them or the sisters that know the lesson, what is a fruit? They will answer, the fruit is the FOI, the name given to the military training of the men who belong to Islam in North America. But some of them will answer, a fruit is what, brothers? A fruit is the best. A tree that is growing is worked. All of its life, you may not even know what kind of tree it is until it produces a fruit. I used to live on 54th. I bought a house. I thought I was being hip. I was going to grow some things in the yard. I grabbed some of our students from MUI, made them dig a deep hole, had them plant a cherry tree, a little dwarf cherry tree. Now, after they worked hard, dug a hole 3 feet deep, got that plant into the ground. Months later, I looked up and only to realize that in my yard, there was a cherry tree already there. A large, fruitful cherry tree. But because I didn't work in agriculture, I didn't know what the leaves of a cherry tree looked like. It never was realized to me that that was a cherry tree until it produced some fruit. So when you see the men and women in the Nation of Islam known as the fruit of Islam, you may not have known that Islam was there until it produced something. What it produced was a man like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we call the first fruit. And men like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or Minister Malcolm X, they're also fruit, men and women, made to be the best. Allah says in the Quran that he was with us from each of us in our beginning. Each of us are a unique creation. Your fingerprint is not matched by anybody else in the world. Your DNA print is not matched by anyone else in the world. So you are unique. I
am unique, matchless, incomparable. There's not another person in this room, no matter what your education, that can be a better Brother Abdul Sabor than I can be. If I will accept my own and be myself, then I can be all that I can be. And the same is true for each and every one of you. And Allah says, He created you from a single being, then created its mate of the same kind and sent down from you 8 of the cattle in pairs. He created you in the wombs of your mothers, creation after creation in triple darkness. That is Allah, your Lord. His is the kingdom. There is no God but He. How then are you turned away? A couple of more scripture and I'm almost there. The very first revelation of the Holy Quran was given to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and it comprises the text of what is in the 96th chapter or surah. It gives us an indication of our potential, yet it must be realized. It says, from Allah read, in the name of thy Lord who creates man from a clot. Read, and thy Lord is most generous, who taught man by the pen, taught man what he knew not. Now, we may think, brother, you sound kind of religious. Well, you all have a religion. The only question is, what is it? Now, I once heard someone say, former minister here in Oakland, California, who was the founder at Mosque number 26. At the time, his name was Bernard Kushmir. He became Minister Jibril Muhammad. And I heard him say once that whoever it is you've accepted as your guide, you have accepted as your God. In other words, we're all following somebody. Anybody that thinks that they're in a world following nobody is lying to themselves. In the least, you followed your own mother. All of us are affected by those that are responsible for shaping our reality. So it's written in closing of this part of the Quran, so set thy face for religion, Surah 30 and 30. Being upright, the nature made by Allah in which He has created man. The capacity of man is matchless. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave his students a question, and all of them can answer it. Who is the original man? Let's recite the whole thing. In unity class, they didn't know I was going to call on them. I've been known to do this. Class, who is the original man? What? You associated man with God? Yeah, God did. When He said He breathed into man of His own inspiration and he became a living soul. This teaching inspired and lifted Malcolm from where he was found in the prison system. He was taught that the capacity of man is matchless, that man is created in the nature of God, that anything a man can conceive in his mind is a thing that a man can achieve. Man and only man, like God, can decree to a matter as written in the Quran, be, and it is. This capacity of man, who is free to be himself, this is our natural form. Man, at his best, is God. Man, in his decline, is beast. Man, in his worst mind, can be turned into a devil. We are born and created of the proper form. Well, there's another scripture, though, that describes our rearing here under slavery. And it goes like this. We are a people born in sin and shaped in iniquity. Our brother Malcolm is beloved by all that have come to know him. I, like many, watched the film made by Spike Lee. However, I thought he took too much time showing Malcolm Little and not enough time showing Malcolm X. Many of us are familiar with Malcolm Little because we may have known a little Negro life ourselves. I don't know about you. I didn't accept Islam and step down from heaven to find it. I was laid out in hell like everyone else to stand up in Islam to accept it. And this is only to say that Malcolm is beloved because when we see him, we learn that in his childhood and in his upbringing, that he was marked in a world of white supremacy with ideas of black inferiority at its worst. He was born the son of Brother Earl and Sister Louise Little in Omaha, Nebraska. His father was from Reynolds, Georgia. His mother was from Grenada, which they called at those times the British West Indies. His father Earl was touched by the organizing efforts of our brother represented here today, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, his outspokenness, Malcolm's father. So if someone wants to know where he learned the gift of gab, much of it came instinctively from his father, a man he barely knew because his father was slain when he was a little boy. His father and his outspokenness made him, Earl Little, a target of Klan and white supremacist violence. His mother, Louise, was a secretary for the UNIA branch, which means that he was born in a home of folk who loved black folk. One of my brothers who opened brought his little child up here with him, and he was happy to see that so many of you have brought children with you, because that means that your children are absorbing the benefit of your love for your own people. Malcolm and his family loved their own people. Now, Malcolm was born in 1925. At 3 years old, his family had to flee from Omaha from KKK threats, where they eventually landed in the Midwest between Milwaukee and Michigan, where he continued working, his father and mother did, with the UNIA. When his father was slain, it was 1931. Malcolm, born in 1925, was somewhere about 6 years of age. His mother did not survive this violence well, and she suffered mental health collapse, overwhelmed by the circumstances, and was institutionalized by 1939. So a young Malcolm watched his family destroyed as a boy. At just 10 years old, he witnessed his mother's decline. As a teenager, with family life disrupted, Malcolm took to a life on the street and hustled. He did what folks do when hustling, whatever that is. You know, when people join the Nation of Islam, we don't unearth their past. We don't ask about it. Some of the best places to teach Islam, Brother Jabari, is in a prison. And they taught us when I visited the prisons, never ask the inmates what they're here for. Just teach them Islam and watch what Islam will do for them. So when our membership and guests come to visit with us, we don't spend a lot of time trying to unearth what they used to do, what you used to do when you was a Negro. Tell the truth to yourself. Don't tell me I don't know if my ears can handle it. Now, it says he was declared a ward of the state and assigned to a white family in Mason, Michigan. Sent to an all-white junior high school, he was its only black student. And to show you how Allah had blessed him with leadership and oratory skill, it says his extraordinary promise, notwithstanding Malcolm's high aspiration to be a lawyer, a professional man of respect, was destroyed by his English teacher, who was an advisor and actually a gatekeeper. He was so talented in that environment, with 300 white students, they elected him to be the class president. That's telling you something about his capacity. But when his teacher told him you could never be what's in your mind to be, he did what many of us would do. He dropped out of school. Malcolm was disappointed in the system. And then he turned to the streets to survive. And that's where he would pick up the moniker Detroit Red and to perform the deeds that would eventually land him in a 10-year sentence in 1946. Well, while they thought that that sentence would break him, that sentence actually made him. I heard Minister Farrakhan say that genius is in the jails. That he said that if you're serving time, he said to inmates, don't serve time, let time serve you. And while he was there, Malcolm's family began introducing him one step at a time to the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that penitentiary became his state university. There he discovered himself. He learned from his family the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and communicated from prison with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who himself had just been released from prison a few years before. Like all of us, Malcolm was formed by God. He was deformed in white supremacy that led him to conform in Satan's way. But he became transformed by the renewing of his mind. He entered a process that we call in spiritual terms resurrection. When he met a teacher who was able to stimulate his interest and his mind. Resurrection is an internal process that can be stimulated by an external force which can stimulate in a human being that which God hath placed in each of us, called the self-accusing spirit. The self-accusing spirit is a voice of God from within, which leads us to moral awakening and leads ultimately to what is called resurrection. In the Muslim program, as I close, when we discuss resurrection in the Nation of Islam, we don't refer to any graveyard. The graveyards from which our people must be raised is Broadway, is Martin Luther King, is East 14th Street or International, depending on how old you are. It's Bancroft, it's West Oakland, it's East Oakland, it's North Oakland. These are the places of the dead. We know that there's nobody coming up out of a grave at any time to help you. And if the time of the great resurrection meant that all the graveyards were going to be opened, you thought you had a hard time getting a job now. You thought the lines were long at the store now. Let those billions of people come up out these graves and find out where you're going to live then. This is only to say that resurrection has a meaning. But its meaning that we should believe that it is that a physically dead people are coming back, that's wrong. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad called that a slave teaching. Any teaching that leads us to think that we need to die to go to heaven is a slave teaching. We don't need to die to go to heaven. Brother, you want to see heaven? Brothers, you want to see heaven? Get you a good wife. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, in her is your heaven. So you can go home singing, heaven must be like this. But if you want that, you got to treat her right. Right? I think my brother said you get more than one wife so you can cheat on her or something like that. That ain't heaven. That'll give you hell. Heaven and hell, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught Malcolm, who taught others, is a condition for the living. These are not places that we go after we are dead. Malcolm was so inspired by the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that wonderful writing that is now known all over the world, the autobiography of Malcolm X. It began in 1963
before the incident for which he would be sat down from his assignment. He sat down with Alex Haley, with whom he had already met because they interviewed together with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad 3 years before for Playboy magazine. Alex Haley had a hard time getting Malcolm to express more of his story, because as he talked to Malcolm, Malcolm told him what he told the world whenever he opened up his mouth. He said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us these things. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us these things. And Alex was doing his best to get Malcolm to reveal his story. But you know, family, we all have a story that involves our resurrection. And if we actually took the time to unpack the stories of each of us in the room, you might discover Jabari before he's the Jabari that we know now, or Cyril before he's the Cyril that we know now, or Sabor before I'm the Sabor that you know now. Thanks be to Allah, like many of you, I've been known by many names. I didn't always know the name Quadro. I knew another name. And I had been known myself as a student of Islam by multiple names. When my brother met me, I was Minister Keith 3X. Now, in order to alleviate confusion, they said, well, just call him Minister Keith X. A few years later, I was Keith Muhammad. Some years later, thanks be to Allah, I was blessed to be granted the name Abdul Sabor Muhammad. We are all living lives of transition. We are all living lives of change. None of us can be judged because we are people that are on the move, and as we cannot be judged, neither can we judge you. So the best thing that we can do with each other as we're striving to build a movement, a shot of unity that can be heard all over the world, right out of here in Oakland, right here in the offices or the museum that honors the Black Panther Party. There's probably no better place to say to the world that the black man and woman of Oakland are willing and ready to stand and unite to do something for ourselves, because we're looking at a world that's coming down. And if we attach our world, this world that's coming down, let me just share this with you as I close. It's in the Bible. It reads this way. The love of this world is enmity with God. So if you are more in love with the systems of this world than you are with the future of our own, then you can be used as a tool by the enemy of our rise. The Black Panther Party was disrupted early. Before you could get 2 or 3 in a room, the scripture says where 2 or 3 go in my name, I am in the midst of thee. Did I say the scripture? I should have said the FBI. Because they were there that early. I picked up a book, I'll never forget it. As a college student, I was a Black Student Union president, enamored by the Black Panther Party. I'm down in Southern California, and the party had its impact on our Black Student Union. I moved to Oakland, went to get my hair cut, sat in a barber shop. They had a book on the chair while I was waiting. The book was about the Black Panther Party, and I picked it up. I'm waiting for my cut, and I saw that the preface was written by a man by the name of Mr. Earl Anthony. Now, I don't know what you know about the name Mr. Earl Anthony, but he wrote a book that was handed to me as a college student called Picking Up the Gun. Members of the BSU said this is the book recommended reading. Read Autobiography of Malcolm X, Picking Up the Gun. So I went and got my books. I picked up Picking Up the Gun, and was written by Earl Anthony. Well, little did I know until I went to this barbershop, that Earl Anthony, who wrote the book Picking Up the Gun, who was likely one of the first 20 members of the Black Panther Party, was a government agent. Did you hear what I just said? How do I know? He wrote it in the foreword of this book on the Black Panther Party. He wrote it.
that he was a government informant and infiltrator. My brothers, had you seen that? You had seen it? My brothers from All African People Revolutionary Party, they taught me to read books when I was a college student and to go after everything that you could find. And so I'm honored to be here with you. But our transformation begins when we begin to go after a knowledge of self and to live in harmony with the purpose of our creation. In closing, Minister Farrakhan once said, "Blessed is he who learns his purpose in life and fulfills it." So when you discover your purpose, as Malcolm discovered his purpose, as Minister Farrakhan is living his purpose, you don't sit down and do nothing. Nothing from nothing will get you nothing. When you believe that you're finding your purpose, get up, roll up your sleeves, find people of like mind to be your circle of influence. Get away from people that are doing nothing when you're trying to do something. The worst thing you need when you are trying to do something is to be surrounded by people who don't want to do nothing. Get up, come to a meeting like this. Come to a mosque, go to an organization that's working for your people. Find people that want to do something like you want to do. And when we find those, they become our support group. They become our friends. They become our comrades. They become our companions. They become our co-fighters. They become our co-pilots. They become our team. They give us the structure to move forward in doing something of good that we may have felt that we were born to do. But when you find it, don't lay down on it. When you find it, get up and step out in what you believe. Thank you. May Allah bless and keep you. Assalamu alaikum.
Magnificent as expected. Thank you so much, Minister. The next thing on our agenda is there's going to be an excellent film that Race for the Times has put together for us. I had mentioned to one of the sisters here at the museum about dimming these two lights for the screen here. So perhaps she could dim that for me. Cool.
Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies. Everybody is here. As many of you know, last March, when it was announced that I was no longer in the Black Muslim movement, it was pointed out that it was my intention to work among the 22 million non-Muslim Afro-Americans and to try and form some type of organization or create a situation where the young people, our young people, the students and others, could study the problems of our people for a period of time and then come up with a new analysis and give us some new ideas and some new suggestions as to how to approach a problem that too many other people had been playing around with for too long. And that we would have some kind of meeting and determine at a later date whether to form a black nationalist party or a black nationalist army. There have been many of our people across the country from all walks of life who have taken it upon themselves to try and pool their ideas and to come up with some kind of solution to the problem that confronts all of our people. And tonight we are here to try and get an understanding of what it is they've come up with. Also, recently, when I was blessed to make a trip or a pilgrimage, a religious pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, where I met many people from all over the world, plus spent many weeks in Africa, trying to broaden my own scope and get more of an open mind to look at the problem as it actually is. One of the things that I realized, and I realized this even before going over there, was that our African brothers have gained their independence faster than you and I here in America have. They've also gained recognition and respect as human beings much faster than you and I. Just 10 years ago on the African continent, our people were colonized. They were suffering all forms of colonization, oppression, exploitation, degradation, humiliation, discrimination, and every other kind of Asian. And in a short time, they have gained more independence, more recognition, more respect as human beings than you and I have. And I live in a country which is supposed to be the citadel of education, freedom, justice, democracy, all of those other pretty sounding. So it was our intention to try and find out what was our African brothers doing to get results so that you and I could study what they had done and perhaps gain from that study or benefit from their experiences. And my traveling over there was designed to help to find out how. One of the first things that the independent African nations did was to form an organization called the Organization of African Unity. The purpose of our organization of Afro-American Unity, which has the same aim and objective, to fight whoever gets in our way. To bring about the complete independence of people of African descent here in the Western Hemisphere, and first here in the United States, and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
He's not teaching hate, he's teaching history. And since the American white man has used his control over the press and over the textbooks and over all forms of media to make it appear that he has done us a favor by bringing us here and enslaving us, then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has to rewrite history or retell history. And since the white man can't dispute this truth, he tries to defend himself by saying that Mr. Muhammad is teaching hate. It's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate, that's truth. You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. And when black people in this country come out from under the mental straitjacket that the Negro clergymen have placed them in, and begin to see that the only way you can get freedom is to get it the same way the white man in this country got it from England, or he says he got it from England. He was willing to pay the price for freedom. And when you're willing to pay the price for freedom, then you'll get it. But the Negro in this country has never been willing to pay the price for his freedom. All of the price that we've been paying in the past has been freedom for the white man. We fought abroad so that the white man in America could be free today to sick police dogs on us, to beat our people in the heads with police clubs, and to turn water hose on little women and children and babies simply because they want to walk down the street like decent human beings. That's now the only way you can have peace is to eliminate those injustices, and the American white man is not going to eliminate them. He's going to talk that pretty talk, but he'll still continue to practice those inhuman deeds.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
We feel that the problem, number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not of violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we're denied the right to be a human being.
And now, if the federal government does not find it within its power and ability to investigate a criminal organization such as the Klan, then you and I are within our right to wire Secretary General Uthar of the United Nations and charge the federal government in this country behind Lyndon B. Johnson with being derelict in its duty to protect the human rights of 22 million black people in this country. And in their failure to protect our human rights, they are violating the United Nations Charter, and they are not qualified to continue to sit in that international body and talk about what human rights should be done in other countries on this earth. I have to say this, and I'll sit down. Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" He was as sick as the master. When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened.
And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes, they ate the worst food, and they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes. I'm a field Negro. If I can't live in the house as a human being, I'm praying for a wind to come along. If the master won't treat me right and he's sick, I'll tell the doctor to go in the other direction. But if all of us are going to live as human beings, as brothers, then I'm for a society of human beings that can practice brotherhood. So before I sit down, I want to thank you for listening to me. I hope I haven't put anybody on the spot. I'm not intending to try and stir you up and make you do something that you wouldn't have done anyway. I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture. And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. He wouldn't need to sneak around here. This is how they function. They function in mobs. That's a coward. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. No. The time will come when that sheet will be ripped off. If the federal government doesn't take it off, we'll take it off.
Thank you so much. It's a film by Race for the Times. I'm gonna make it a point here to just mention something again. You know, it's the small things that are really gonna make transformation and change for us as a people. Us just coming together in this room is obviously something that can agitate the white status quo. You know, trust and believe. When a couple of Beckys come in the room like that, they know good and well they're not supposed to be here. They see the red, black, and green flag out front. I'm sorry I'm up here editorializing real quick like this, but I got a pet peeve about this because I've seen it with such consistency. You know, my brother Reefer here knows that right over here at Joyce Gordon Gallery, I threw a white boy out the room because we had a gathering in there. And that was the second time we had a gathering in there of all black folks. And somebody's going to come in the room and purposefully try to breach the cultural intimacy of the discussion or the gathering, willfully doing that. This is not by mistake, okay? So I just had to say that. The next thing on our agenda here is going to be a panel discussion. And the panel discussion is going to be discussing transformation. Our honored guests are going to be Minister Abdul Zabur Muhammad and Brother Jabali here, who is a long time, basically living history surrounding the Black Panther Party. He was a rank and file Panther. There's a lot of visual culture history with his image in it, where a lot of the legends of him basically working with the breakfast program here in Oakland, a lot of really, and with the paper and things of that nature, with the Black Panther Party's paper. And so we're honored to have these two brothers, and we're going to have, where is he? Is Ajamu in the house? There he is. Okay, I didn't see where you were sitting, brother. So we have Brother Ajamu come up here as well. All right.
3.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 3, because I'm going to sit right on the side to ask questions. Sure. Yeah. You're going to get it on me. I didn't see you come in, man. I was switching the room for you. Yeah, so Brother Jamu, Brother Akabundu, I'm sorry. Please come up to the stage. Brother Akabundu. Minister Sabur Abdul Muhammad, and Brother Jabali. Yeah. Are we honored to have Chairman Fred Hampton here in the room? Oh, well, look at here. Like I said before, you know, we're gonna play it by ear. Play this like a jazz tune. May we improvise. If you would like to become part of this discussion, we'd be honored to have you up here. It has to do. The questions will have to do with how Malcolm X, the image, ideology, and voice of Malcolm X gave you personal transformation. That's the nature of the questions. Chairman Fred Hampton, Jr. Get ready here. All right. Yeah, it's the little things. Be ourselves here. Be comfortable being ourselves. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to have you hold this one, and then when each person is speaking and answering the question, you can just pass it along there. The switch will turn the mic on. All right.
1, 2.
Here we go. Okay. So.
Testing.
Give me just a moment here, please. Boom. Got my notes ready. All right. Yeah. So, you know, like I said, it's those, there are some small things that can happen to you that will really transform you. And I've spoken to many, many brothers who picked up the autobiography of Malcolm X, like myself, like the brother you're looking at right now. I picked it up at age 19, and I was never the same again in a good way. Once you wake up, you can't unsee things. You can't go back to sleep. So I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists, how and when did you first encounter the image and voice of Malcolm X?
Greetings, family. My name is Akabundu Amazu, organizer with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party for many decades. And as Minister Sabur referenced, one of our programs is about political education and about study. I have to credit the AAPRP as the base of where I encountered Malcolm first. I probably was about 21 years old. Prior to that, you know, some of the lyrical voices were not as conscious as Malcolm. So was that the basis of it, just when and how we encountered? Yeah, the study. And I recall we did a retreat once in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we were sitting around a campfire. We brought some of our cadre out from the East Coast. There were speakers. We brought some of our Alliance comrades out that were educating us on their struggles. And that night around the campfire, somebody threw in a tape of Malcolm X. And I don't know if I had really heard him before in the same way that I heard him that night. We put Kwame Ture on after that. I think we might have been up all night because we were back and forth with Malcolm and Kwame, but it definitely was enlightening. And from that point on, I think it was very transformative. But I know you have some other questions about that, so I'll leave it at that.
For me, I would have to stay about 1985. I was blessed that year to travel to Egypt with Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakanan as a college student, 21 years old, no knowledge of self, but was awakened on that trip. And on my return home, I was in search of knowledge. I discovered in my home, my parents evidently had a love for all things black in a way that I didn't pay attention to because we didn't talk about it. But as I began to make my way through information in the home, Roots was on the shelf. The autobiography of Malcolm X was on the shelf. Albums of the last poets were on the shelf. Albums of Reverend Jackson giving a speech called Know Your Enemy was on the shelf. And it dawned on me that my parents and their love for our people filled our home with elements of that love that I didn't even see until I was 21 years old. That included the history of Malcolm X.
I first ran across Malcolm in San Francisco when I was 17 years old. I was out running the streets looking for something to do, and I stumbled upon a party. And it happened to be a party given by the San Francisco State Black Student Union, which I didn't know nothing about at the time. So anyway, I was in there partying, having a good time. And they had a pause for the cause where the DJ was resting, so they put a record on the record player, and it was Malcolm. But at the time, I didn't know who Malcolm X was. I didn't know who I was really. And he was talking, and I was kind of paying attention. I kind of wasn't paying attention, but he caught my attention when he said the white man is the devil. And that kind of just woke me up for a second. So I started listening. And the more I listened, the more I became aware, and it just kept going for the rest of my life.
Brother, I want to say something real quick right just before you speak. I want to make sure that I've made it clear who we have here. Brother Jabbar was a rank and file Black Panther Party member, and this brother, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., is the son of Fred Hampton Sr., the legendary Chicago Black Panther organizer, just for, like, if there are any younger folks in the room that may not be aware of that. So.
Brother, salute. Thank you, brother. Thank my fellow panelists also. I can recall, I guess, that aha moment that, in particular, in regards to beginning to understand, hearing Malcolm X, but I guess I took it for granted. I just spoke earlier and I said sometimes we can take the politics and certain dynamics in our life for granted, but I know in particular a contradiction I incurred when I was held captive, when I was a political prisoner. And contradictions are necessary. I tend to make you appreciate certain things. As Minister Uri Pinu said, the contradictions are the ruling principle of the universe. And I remember this situation in particular in Stateville prison, and when I was held captive. And the gallery I was on, I think it was on 7 Gallery, and they were showing Spike Lee's version of Malcolm X, the movie, came on TV. And the guy upstairs on another gallery, and I don't know if he probably sees he's going to trip, like it impacted me this way. His name was Lemon here. He said, I was surprised when he said something like, they were showing the movie, he said, man, it was kind of degrading the way he said, damn, that's what happened to dude. And it kind of hit me how he said that. And when the gates rolled, when they opened, before when I approached him, I said, you don't know who that is, and the reverence you got to have when speaking about him. And we had a discussion, and I recall even calling my mother that day, and I said, you know what? Because I tell her I'm real critical about subjectivity. I said, I think, man, you have our own subjectivity also. I just took for granted that everyone knew who this was. And so it kind of blew me away. So that contradiction was necessary for me to, I guess, really appreciate something that, that this system strategically, like on so many of our representatives, that a lot of people are not familiar with, or like a trauma victim, you will hear about it, but it's like, no slight on Dr. King, but like Pocket said, Tupac had said, in school we know who to say, who not to say. So really like triggered and touched me when that brother, when he referenced it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that was the close to aha moment.
So moving on from that, so at a young age, you encounter his voice, maybe his image, et cetera, and so forth. That was really deep that you encountered that image, the movie, while you were, in captivity.
I'll be clear. No, that wasn't my first contact. No.
Okay.
I'll be clear. The brother upstairs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I was subjective. I just took for granted everyone knew who Malcolm was.
I feel you.
Yeah, to be clear on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my first contact. No,
right.
You won't get me in trouble with my household. Yeah, no.
Sorry about that. Okay. So after having encountered him at a young age, what attracted you to his voice? The spiritual message, political message, or just charisma?
As a college student in the Black Student Union, it was the political message and the charisma that would attract me to his voice and lead me to read as many of his words as I could, and then utilize the nuggets of wisdom that he spoke whenever we were speaking to do what we could to organize the students.
Yeah, that voice and that message is so dynamic. I think for me, because as I mentioned, I moved into a level of activism and was working to build the party, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And for a long time, the political education was just that. It was political education. And of course, we all have our connection in some way. And I think hearing Malcolm's voice let me understand the connection between the spirituality that I felt I walked this earth in and the activism that I had pretty much just been born into, and that there was not a conflict between them, and that as long as I blended and merged those two, that feeling of righteousness, or that feeling of wanting to do the right thing, with this understanding that it's going to be a challenge, that it's not something that's going to be popular. I was teasing one of my buddies. I used to play football at San Jose State, and he called me. He said, "Man, we made it. We just made it to our 70th birthday and da-da-da-da." I said, "Yeah, we made it, but y'all threw me under the bus after I heard Malcolm and started trying to educate you and started trying to be somebody that was conscious." So definitely, I think it was a blend of both the spirituality and the activism that I've come to embrace.
Yeah, Malcolm actually woke me up, and I didn't know that I was asleep. So it was a surprise, and the way that he spoke, it was easy for me to understand what he was saying. It was like he was talking to me personally. Because I had been through some of the same situations he had been through. And, I was just struggling. I didn't even know I was struggling, but I was struggling. Life was hard. Still, well, if you black, life is hard. That's just how it is here in America. In the world, really. As long as you're around the Europeans, you're going to have some problems. So I just start reading books. I only read in school, but I started reading books because of Malcolm. I started studying Black history because of Malcolm. I started doing for self because of Malcolm. And I'm still doing for self.
Right on. I think myself and like so many others, although giving a reactionary assessing of Malcolm like this in plain layman's terms, to hit stuff like, you hit me, I'm hitting you back. Just that, even though wasn't providing a political assessment, but just that to hear that, and not just in regards to our respect with each other in the community, that of the system, even for a system, even just in a race analysis, that confidence and of course that charisma, that coolness, the way it was brought, and to touch, to speak on subjects or taboos, you know what I'm saying, with a confidence, in particular prison, you know what I'm saying, to say that, you know, because as Field Marshal George Jackson say, capitalism not only affects the economy, but it affects the psyche. And like, when you hear certain terms, you know, they're block, you know, prisoner, what did you do? You know, but to come out to get you to the person to acknowledge that contradiction, to say, yeah, I've been there, and then to take it there. So that right there, that was a tap into my heart, my soul.
One of the things that struck me about the film that Race for the Times did was how well they were connecting Malcolm's perspectives and ideology to our contemporary moment. You know, Burkina Faso, there's still this ubiquitous skin lightening cream in many parts of the world, on the continent and around us, and we could extend it even further to a lot of the straight hair, wild colored, different hair, long artificial eyelashes and things of that nature that are bombarding a lot of our youth nowadays. I'm wondering from our panelists here, what are your observations about Malcolm's contemporary relevance, like his words and how they can be applied to some of the ailments that we're seeing today, and basically, making commentary on it in ways that can raise someone to consciousness or transform them. Hope my question is clear. If not, I can go through it again. Just basically, how is he relevant today? And is there something specific that he did or said that you can see that's relevant to our community now that might help with transformation?
Truth always has relevancy. Malcolm, most of what you know of him, is a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching. And if you want to best understand where Malcolm may have gone, I would tell you to look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the messages that he's delivering. Minister Farrakhan was a student of Brother Malcolm in Mosque number 7. Both of them were students of the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And those teachings are as relevant, even more so today, than they were yesterday. And I'll close on this point. I mentioned not being conformed to this world, that we must be transformed. Well, this world has captured medium that lies to people in rapid fire fashion on most any subject. If you relied on artificial intelligence to do your research for you, as an example, well, there was somebody's intelligence behind the artificial intelligence. And as someone once said, that power is the ability to define reality and make others to respond to your definition as if it were their own. I was looking on some details on Malcolm even, and I read a piece that said that he changed his name. He didn't change his name. He was in a process by which a name was given to him as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. These mediums have written out the foundation of his teaching, and although the thing that you love about him are quite frankly the things he did for 12 years for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I heard one of my brothers relate that when you study our brother Malcolm, 12 years are with the Nation of Islam, 350 days from the time he left his assignment is what came after that. And our brother Malcolm did not live to fulfill or to realize what those other organizations may have become. So the thing that people admire most and best about him is the firebrand truth hurler he became for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and all of those of us in the nation were certainly impacted by his style. So if you heard a young Louis Farrakhan, you were hearing a young Malcolm X. And finally, keep in mind that this is a young man's war. I never thought of it until now that I just passed a birthday, and you got to think more clearly. In that, when Brother Malcolm was slain, he was 39.
When Dr. King was slain, he was 39. I just passed 62. And my teacher, the Honorable Minister, just hit his 93rd birth anniversary. Praise be to Allah. But when I was sent to Oakland, he told the person that sent me for him, put the younger ones out front, and you slowly ease to the back. When it doesn't mean that those that are older don't have a role, they absolutely must. Our elders are for counsel, and our young men are for war. Now, don't get it twisted, 62, I'm not an elder yet. I can still fight, but I do think that someone that is much and far younger can run faster, can run farther, can fight stronger in certain categories. I'll keep training, so you don't bring it unless you want it to be returned. But that does not mean that it is for me to hold on to something that somebody younger must provide. LeBron can only be LeBron for so long. The LeBron, the Steph, the Klay Thompson, the others that you see now, while they're still great, and there's no denying their greatness, there's somebody coming behind them. And we must always provide a way for those that are coming behind us to take the stick and run this race to the next course.
Malcolm basically got me to have the knowledge of self, to understand who I was. You know, thought I was just a Negro. You know, I didn't know any history. I didn't know about Africa. I didn't know about pyramids. I just thought we'd always been slaves, you know, and I was just fortunate that I wasn't a slave. So Malcolm got me to the point where I could research, start learning, and I felt, you know, proud of myself. You know, I was a proud black man, you know. That's what led me to the Black Panther Party. And then once I got amongst Panthers, I started learning politically, started learning what was going on in the world, and I started reaching out to youngsters. I was a youngster myself, you know, but I just wanted to learn and pass that knowledge on to the youth so we could get out of this hell that we in.
Right on. I think fortunately and as well as unfortunately, we're at the stage in the game where the emperor has no clothes, and certain messages from such forces as Malcolm, people can relate to it, can hear it now, but it's not to negate that the message has been there. It's kind of like that old axiom that says if a tree falls in the forest, if you don't hear it, it doesn't make a noise. And it's arrogant to say, no, I didn't hear it, so it didn't make a noise. And the messages that have been there, you can correlate capitalism to the coronavirus. It may be dormant in certain periods of time, but it's there. And at certain times when it's heightened, people can relate to it. In the time period, like I'm looking at the footage, the clenched fist salute to the comrades with the footage, and you can see some of the dynamics. Like okay, who are these? Some of these representatives of people not familiar. Like, was at that period Malcolm to my present day, and you can Thomas Sankara to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, which some people are open to see what's happening in the world, because a lot of times this a tactic of this system, it gets us engaged in subjectivity or tunnel vision. You can't see past your block, or me and I. And that time period where people, in fact, the ruler class said that was one of their biggest mistakes about showing media coverage of Malcolm as well as in Vietnam. Because when you start, especially in our community, when you start hearing this other dynamics was going on with other people, say, whoa, wait a minute. In fact, I think they say one of the enslaved on the plantation overheard Patrick Henry say something to the effect that give me liberty, give me death. And people are like, that's something we should be saying. And in Vietnam, people turn like political prisoners. People say, well, I can relate to that. That's something we've been going through all the time. Because we as a people, we're the OVs, not the OGs. We're the original victims of terrorism. And it becomes normalized to us. So sometimes you need that nudge and say, wait a minute, there's resistance happening all here. people fighting back. They've been oppressed in Africa, and draw their correlation being drawn. I just came back. I was over there for some legal reasons and political reasons in Africa, close to 3 months. Political exile, for lack of better terms. But in the discussions that was happening over there, I think this, I keep saying this image, this sister, elderly sister, knocking up, she's in Ghana, but there's an image of Captain Ibrahim Traoré and just how proud she was knocking the dust off the picture, you know what I'm saying, and it had emboldened you. And just these images along, and these war and love stories, how it can become contagious and emboldens you, you know what I'm saying? And they attempt to take away all those representations from us. But this is a time period again when the emperor has no clothes, and you know what I'm saying, and it's forced, so like Nixon on steroids, and certain conversations can be had, and people can relate to those messages from such the caliber forces that we got. It ain't like no milk, ain't no expiration date on it. Also, including say this too in closing. Even at I said Minister Keith, I know it's Minister Abdul Sabur, make sure I get that correct. Y'all mentioned like people bring their youth out here, you know, that's good because we're not just some one dynamic, like we're a product of, I mean, we talk about Malcolm, you know, when his parents, God rights, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, all these different things, even our adversary, you know, so you got, you know what I'm saying, I tell people, talk about Chairman Fred, you got to mention Daily Machine also in Chicago. So, in the impact on your childhood, all that, so it's like redemption, like, because even out in the courtrooms, they hit us, they read your record of, and a lot of these youth feel doomed. Like, oh yeah, I did, I got a curfew violation, my life is over with. You know what I'm saying? To hear that, you know what I'm saying, to say, wait a minute, you know, so even, and not by the ruling class standard, the 6th grade education, that's defeatism to a lot of people. Say, oh, you didn't go to school, you didn't make it, you know, hold on, these geniuses that they trying to get us dismissed. We can't afford that, so it's inspiring, and these are forces we like to refer to as real models as opposed to role models.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, you know, I think in terms of, even if you look at the struggles of, say, the redistricting that's going on inside of the U.S. in the Voting Rights Act, I was listening to Malcolm's The Ballad of the Bullet the other day, right? And he's telling the people, you know, we've got to get organized and we've got to come at this system as a block. We can't come at it through the Democrats, the Dixiecrats, or the Republicans. We have to come at it as a people with a common interest that are organized, that are aware of that common interest. And we also called out the internal class enemies on a regular basis. And so I think that was important in terms of the domestic reality inside of what some call the United Snakes of America. I think within the global context, you know, Malcolm was a serious Pan-Africanist. His visits, his travel throughout Africa, when you look at them, he was meeting with the common people. He was meeting with his counterparts from Nkrumah to Ray to Nasser. And so when I think about the strategies of talking about how do you unify the African continent, how do you really have power? Because I know we have a tendency sometimes when we look at history, we kind of get stuck in time. And one of the things about Malcolm, he was a historical materialist, and he kept it moving. He kept it, his analysis kept him moving forward, always. And, you know, of course, we embraced the Black nationalism and opening stores and having your own. But when you follow that path, you'll see that Malcolm ended up in Africa. You'll see that analysis will take us to talk about here's the richest continent on the planet that we are part and parcel of, and that we need to organize it so that the wealth of Africa benefits African people, not just on the continent, but globally. So, you know, it should never be a debate whether it's Black nationalism or Pan-Africanism, because it's historical materialism that brings us to understand nothing is standing still. We've arrived at Pan-Africanism, and just in closing, you know, our theme partly for African Liberation Day this year talks about revolutionary Pan-Africanism and goes on to say some other things. And somebody asked me, well, why does it have to say revolutionary Pan-Africanism and not just Pan-Africanism?
And the reason is that things get hijacked. People just come and they embrace it, they steal it, and that internal class enemy has to be fought at every level. And you can't just take revolution, even though they'll kidnap that one as well. But when we say revolutionary Pan-Africanism, we're talking about the one that continues to move forward to organize the 1.5 billion Africans on the continent, the 60% of that being youth under 25. We're talking about the global presence of 80 million Africans in Brazil, more so than we see here, on and on. That's our strength.
I'm kind of like the times keeper, so I'm trying to do two things at the same time. I know that we've come up on the 9 o'clock hour. We had expected to resolve everything with it by the 9 o'clock hour, but I'm hoping that we can have the indulgence of the museum to give us another 15 minutes or so, because really, thank you so much. Give the two sisters at the back of the room a hand. Yeah, and at the end of this, discussion, I'm going to thank a couple of other people that kind of showed up, and everybody, man, you're all in very good company right now. So what we're going to do at this point is really kind of like the centerpiece and the purpose for which we've come together, which is that so the community, so the village can begin thinking about and giving their voice to other folks in the room about what you think about these questions that I just had, or other thoughts that may occur to you. So, I'll start, which has to do with, when I was thinking about Malcolm's relevance in his name, Minister Abdul said something about it being a process to get a name like that. The part of the transformation is very intentional. Nation of Islam has a great deal of intention in regards to how you gain those names. I gained a name on the continent as well. As a matter of fact, I gained 6 of them in 2 different spaces, but they were in ritual. It's very intentional, and the names have meaning and purpose, right? And I'm thinking how the larger society now with a lot of these performing artists, think of the name, I don't even have to say them. Folks in the room probably know some of these ridiculous names, but they're really very derogatory and self-deprecating names that are applied to these people who are given fame and put in front of Black folks, especially our Black youth, as a model of some sort. And so I'm seeing, Malcolm as a model in some way, and where he's relevant is that the intentionality in regards to his name in his transformation and development. One last thing, and I'll land my plane here, is that one of the things that I left out in the little presentation I did on the jazz musicians, Malcolm, and transformation is, in the late 1940s, when a lot of these jazz musicians took on Muslim names, Yusef Lateef, Ahmad Jamal, right? People like that, and on up into the avant-garde, Hamid Drake, and all these different names that they were taking. But back then in 1945, Dizzy Gillespie said it in his autobiography, To Be or Not to Bop, that was a radical act, because there were Zionists, little Zionists that controlled the venues that they were playing in, the way that their music was licensed, and the recording industry that they were in. Them cats caught heat for changing their names to these Muslim names. He said that was a huge controversy. And when I say Zionists, I mean they were actual Zionists. Think of the time frame that I'm talking about. What is it, like 1948, when Israel, takes over Palestine, declares independence, that kind of stuff. So today's the anniversary? Wow. Okay, see, so just that small thing of self-definition too, the defining reality for yourself, internally, that name change is a very powerful thing, that the white status quo reads correctly in that you are taking power and dominance over your own life. So with that, I'm sure there's people in the room that got thoughts, questions. I saw that hand go up. I saw your hand go up. Oh, we got the mic.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Hey, how's everyone doing? All right. Hey, all right. So my name is Shukura. I am with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, also the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. All right. We hope to see you at African Liberation Day. Okay, so I wore this shirt tonight because I think it is a very powerful shirt. For those that cannot read it, it says the role of a women's place is on the front lines. And I notice, although I'm so happy to hear from my brothers tonight, that there are no non-male people on the panel. So I would like to know, based on Malcolm's Pan-Africanist ideology, what do you all think Malcolm would say about the role of women today? Thank you so much.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught Malcolm and many others that a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And while there's not a sister sitting here with us in this moment, that there are certainly sisters who are ready and able to sit here in this moment, so that whatever God gives you the ability to do, to lead, teach, guide, organize, there's a place for you at the table at every turn. In fact, we wouldn't be where we are were it not for the women of the Nation of Islam. And unbeknown by many is the critical role played by the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Mother Clara Muhammad, who led the nation while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to flee from murder plots and landed in prison. And for those 12 years, Clara Muhammad led the Nation of Islam entirely and kept straight until her husband was released from prison. That's an unspoken history of the Nation of Islam. And closing, the first woman who was given the assignment to lead mosque in a region of Muslims in the Muslim world is actually the sister who was the national spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. May Allah be pleased with her, and that's Sister Minister Dr. Ava Muhammad. So there's a place, and your place should be right here.
I conclude. Right on. I just commented a bit earlier, was one of the dynamics about the Montgomery brawl was that balance of the resistance. The men, women, and children, and the deal is resistance with beyond was something that transcends geographical, generational, and gender lines. I kind of envy sometimes. I think you mentioned today is the anniversary. How's it, Nick and I was commenting about the Palestinian community. And I was commenting with the sister. I say, a lot of times in other colonized communities, you hear terms like the Palestinian people or different respective people. I say they have done. I say even with the propaganda bombs, people call them just I don't want to call it hip hop. The propaganda bombs been dropped in our community. I said you hear some discussion between the men and women. It's kind of rivals. The Crip and Blood rivalry of the late 80s in LA. You know, like a lot of cats, they think the women are the ops and the men are the ops. In certain conditions, that's a tactic of colonizing you. I've talked to some people before. I said, "Man, what plantation was y'all on? Was it all women or was it all men?" I don't know what I'm saying. And and like even people like there's like a lot of misconception like with the Black Panther Party. I've heard criticism or slander to say it was due to gender. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't show the Black Panther Party. And I was like, what happened to COINTELPRO? Because we have contradictions, and you put in context of time too. Yes, there are contradictions, but this is a time when, like the Leave It to Beaver TV show was a mainstream TV show. Pat Nixon, who was the wife of Richard Nixon, a lot of people didn't even know she was actually able to, like, physically to speak or not. You know what I'm saying? So these discussions we cannot have it dismissed. We still on the plantation too, so we are impacted by, you know what I'm saying, the behavior, psychic, social. We're fighting for the minds and hearts of the people. Struggle is a cleansing process, and a lot of times, so we challenge these dynamics through the work, the theory, and practice. and organizing. And this would also add to my resume too. I'm honored to be the international chairman of the Black Panther Party Cubs. And I would say, when you say Cubs, you're young. So no, we're not young. But it puts in context of lineage of struggle. Because a lot of times people get involved in struggle, they think this is the first time we've been attacked, this is the first time we fall back. But I recognize we all damage goods. All of us. And I spoke one time, the sister was on the radio show. She said, well, I'm not damaged. I said, well, you unique then. I said, because this system's going to transfer a TV without damaging. And even organizing, I take into account some people, you know what I'm saying, that I strategically, who I put in certain places, and I've seen that the work is the best way. As crazy as this sounds, there are some women who have never seen a black man. There are some black men who have never seen a black woman. Some people have never seen an actual organization fight for self-determination. A lot of people, their first contact with organizations has been a GMO, a government-made organization. I got a group of cats in Chicago I refer to as my Plan B guys. They're reactionaries. I mean, and one of them was having a debate one time. The two of them was in debate. And one of them said to us, hey, man, you really don't like black women. And I said, now you crazy. He said, I got 8 children. And the other guy said, I met all their mothers. Again, you have never had a black woman. These are some tough discussions we have to up the ante on distinguishing male from men, females from women. You follow what I'm saying? And that's a difficult discussion because a lot of we have reactionary assessments. And this is prime time for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like people say, let's just deal with this here about the drugs. Let's deal with the prisoners. Let's deal with all this. You know what I'm saying? All these different dynamics. You know what I'm saying? Because again, Field Marshal George Jackson said, capitalism affects not only the economy, but affects the psyche. So through struggle, we got to seize the time and come in and recognize, yes, there's some contradictions. But the Black Panther Party said differences amongst the people are reconcilable. Differences of the people in the state are irreconcilable. And we got to come in with a cognizance. Unfortunately, with a politics, even with the race question and the class contradiction. When I was in high school, I got into it, the teacher kept on saying how mankind destroyed the earth. And I said, excuse me, I said, no, let's be clear, white mankind, you know what I'm saying? You just need to be clear on that. We had to really up to struggle with that, because a lot of times and certain times we can be, situations happen, like even if we had to seize the time. I mean, I hear what you're saying, sister, but they even know I was here. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't planning on speaking either, but that be on that political pivot, and a lot of times that's through those dynamics. Got to us people out of Cora and Jerry, my mother comrade. I said that was on the Chairman Fred on his right, but that was his comrade. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know about war and love stories where sisters be with them bangers, them pistols. You know what I'm saying? And you calling that as certain luxuries that you can't afford to do. The ruling class said this a man's role, this a woman's role, and that's something I'm saying that they don't even do. They sell. They said our people that propaganda. They just say the reality. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, he was a gangster Billy, if not more than Bill Clinton. You know what I'm saying? Trump. Look at the agents, the women agents, the women doing the press conference on the plantation. The women slave owners. I said it was not only the hit that come down from the master's whip, but also Miss Ann's lip. So you know what I'm saying? So we got to be on with the party that ups the ante, even our terms, our people, as opposed to this option between men and women.
Can I just say we want to welcome our sister Shakura to the African United Front as a representative of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, because we recognize a bit of this contradiction. We're also reflecting back on the Million Man March that Minister Sabur mentioned. Our sister comrade, may she rest in peace, Marina Kouyaté, was one of the voices that brought the Day of Absence to be part of the Million Man March in 1995. So appreciate that.
Thank you. I kind of, Sister Nell, when we come to you, right, I want to say this real quick. I want to take up very much time. You kind of beat me to the punch with welcoming Sister Shakura into and see your hand too, Sister Shakura into the African United Front Oakland. I wanted to say that this is the first of what the African United Front Oakland plan to be 3 events like this. The second of which is Malcolm X and the Black family, where we hope to address
precisely the question that Sister Shakur raised. So it's kind of good. It's like a good transition, something people can anticipate for the next one. All of those topics will come up. And of course, the third piece is going to be Malcolm X and Pan-Africanism. So, this is just the beginning of what it is we're doing. I want people to understand that, we're talking about something here this evening, but there'll be additional opportunities for discussion. Share this information with the appropriate people in your peer group, right? Sister Inem, say where you're from and everything,
Okay, thank you so much. Revolutionary greetings, Africans. My name is Comrade Inem. I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the Thomas Sankara Center, which is based out of Burkina Faso and Niger. I really apologize if my words don't come out right now. I'm super jet lagged. I just came in from Burkina a few days ago, but I'm fighting hard because this is so important. I just want to share a couple anecdotes, and then I have a question for you. So I just wanted to share, first of all, that in our work study circle in Burkina Faso, we're currently reading Malcolm X Speaks, and it's just been the most enriching and insightful experience to sit with these Africans in Burkina Faso and hear their questions and hear how they're grappling with Malcolm X's ideas. And I also want to share in both countries, Burkina Faso and Niger, we have Pan-African libraries. And in Niger, there's no book that is in higher demand than Malcolm X Speaks. And then they just re-released the translation of the autobiography of Malcolm X in French, which was not on the market for a long time. So we finally brought that in, and they're just like gobbling it up. It's like there, it's on fire. And then just the last anecdote I want to share, I'll never forget this. I was visiting my friend's village in the south of Burkina Faso. It's a very rural community. A lot of people don't speak, nobody speaks English. A lot of people don't even speak French. They speak their local languages. Just again, like a very rural place. We stopped to get coffee, and I had to do a double take. I look up and I realize that this place is called Malcolm X Cafe. Just again, it's in a small village. So my question to you, you've talked a bit about how Malcolm X's experiences in Africa shaped him. I would love to know if you have any insight in terms of how Africa has been shaped by the impact of Malcolm X in return.
After, if there's somebody that wants to address that, that's good. I've been told, brother, you had no? I want to hear from you all. Okay, all right. I want to skip the elders. If I don't see your hand, wave it, because I know I saw you. I saw you. So, Brother Damu. Respond. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Was this a response? Yes. Well, I would just acknowledge that the fact that after Malcolm's visit to the OAU, and I think on one of the slides in the slideshow, it showed how Ghana and I think a couple of other countries came forward to the United Nations and brought Malcolm's criticism of racism. I think you just gave us some prime examples of Malcolm's impact on Africa, if I'm understanding your question in that regard. I think it was symbiotic. I mean, it was brothers and comrades and sisters that he connected with, and it was very fruitful in terms of seeing the message that he brought back, that Africa came and said, look, you can't be messing with our people like this. And I know it's deeper, and we just really appreciate you being here and look forward to you speaking at African Liberation Day next weekend.
So one thing that I wanted to share about Malcolm's transformation that really stuck out to me was his understanding of the role of organization. Because when Malcolm left the nation, he created the Organization of African Unity. And to me, that showed that he understood that for him to have agency, not just as an individual, but as a collective for our people, that he had to have organization behind him.
Is for our next question or to respond?
Okay. Point of order, I guess. I saw sister's hand up. I don't know if there's Okay, so this the hand in the back. Okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sherry. From Oakland, California, community activist for almost 20 years. And Pan-Africanist, but I don't always say it. But my question is, I mean, I kind of got a common solution, but it's a little tough. My question is, like for the younger folks and some people even in my age group, they're being a little bit misled, not a little bit, a lot misled with kind of like an identity crisis. And they are using like technology to manipulate Malcolm X speeches and stuff like that to say that we're not from Africa, and it's causing a divide because right now we could be going up with Africa. And Malcolm X said, just like the Chinamen, before they became unified and had their strength, they were being ridiculed and made fun of. And that's the same thing that's going on with us, because you could go to Chinatown and they're serious and they have their community, but the Black people are not unified here with our African brothers and sisters that are very much our relatives, and that's us. But now the identity crisis is being real. It's like, I feel like that's why this room is not even all the way filled up, because a lot of people have deterred, and young folks and even like people in their 40s and 30s have been deterred to be part of something that maybe they might have 5% or whatever, 25% in their DNA, but they're overall African. Maybe they don't know the tribe, maybe they do, but they don't want to associate with that or have anything to do with that. And that is really kind of pretty dangerous. And so I just wanted to know, how can we make sure that the dignity and the pride of our roots is reinstilled, especially if you're going to use Malcolm X's name and things like that. And I know what's up with some of the individuals that's pushing that narrative, but everybody is not aware of that. Social media is like really eating it up real bad. So that was it. I know connections will help, but.
If I may reply to our sister's concern, we are not outnumbered, we are outorganized. And our enemy is expressing his hate faster than we are expressing our love. With every opportunity we have, I saw a similar piece to what she said, speaking with a sister on Facebook just today, arguing against the existence of the slave trade. And the sister said I'm looking at it, on my Facebook page, it was tagged in, where there's an argument that she only found an internet record of one slave ship that made it to in 300 years. She says she found a record of one slave ship. And it comes off because of AI, looking professionally said, professionally done. These are expert liars. So we have to be expert truth tellers. So whoever's managing the information that's going out today or other days that we know are the truth, we have to work as hard to get to our people with the truth that the enemy has worked to get to them with falsehood. And at some point, when you put truth and falsehood in the same place, we can stand up bold and strong, because light defeats darkness every time. So we would have nothing to fear from anybody that brings any other kind of message, because truth is undefeated. Just as this light will dispel the darkness, darkness has no power over the light. So we have to take advantage of every opportunity we have to put the truth in the face of our young people.
So
We're coming up on the bottom of the hour. I want to make sure Sister here gets her either question or statement in, and then we're gonna, wind it down for the evening. I'll make one more announcement afterwards, and then we'll kind of wind it down for the evening. We thank the museum for their patience.
Yeah, my name's Callie, and it's actually funny you mentioned Earl Anthony because that is my uncle. By way of like my grandpa, he's my great uncle. And I think the question that I have is, as we go into the future, we have technology. I think we were talking earlier about kind of political consciousness and Black consciousness being developed now more on an individual realm, especially, when we grapple things, when we even discuss or analyze things, it's on our phone. That's how we come across news. But I think, how do you reinstitute kind of that group collective analysis? I think, the landscape has changed, right? Less active participation in like Black churches, which used to be a cornerstone of a lot of movement organizing. I think also spaces dedicated to community intimacy and cultural intimacy. So I think my overarching question is, how do you reinstitute that? I think through age demographic, historically it's always been the youth. Do we still see that being the youth? I think also, what are new spaces that we can create that cultural intimacy to actually fortify a collective, a strong enough collective that has political reach, that also has economic reach? Yeah, that's my question.
Any panelists want to close us out with a statement in regards to that?
Well, I don't want to dominate the panel, but
Go right ahead.
I would certainly say to my sister's concern, just as my sister was concerned about women at the table, we must also be concerned about youth at the table. There are tables out there, but they say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So when you look up and they deny access to our young people for messages like these to come into the public schools, you got those that are afraid of losing their funding. I was at one time working in a program called the African American Male Achievement Program. And when I got there, they didn't give me any problems, but I did advise the director, look, there's going to be backlash. So he kept me in the background working with the students. I never came out in a public display because we were well aware that as soon as it was discovered that a member of the Nation of Islam was on a campus, at one time we were securing housing projects in Washington, D.C., and turned the most violent housing projects in the country to the most peaceful in really the twinkling of an eye with unarmed guards, because our brothers love the community and the community loves the brothers. And out of mutual respect, those housing complexes became peaceful. Right after the Million Man March, the Congress met, and they gathered to revoke all funding to any program that would hire Muslims to do the security, proclaiming that we were proselytizing. Well, we had brothers who got shot in those missions. We weren't proselytizing, we were fighting for peace. Now, we happen to stand in bow ties, so people happen to know what our faith is, but nobody says nothing when a Jew comes to work with a yarmulke on his head. So why should we have to answer for going into a federally funded workforce with a bow tie or a headpiece? Why should that even be a question? Last time I checked, in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, you had a right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, for freedom of political view. So how should that and why should that even be an issue for a school district, for a city government, for a state or a federal government, except you know that this government is really rooted in hypocrisy, and they do not intend the best for us. But when we have an opportunity to bring our young to the table, we should bring them. To bring all genders to the table, we should bring them, so that we can take that time to organize for what our future will look like. In closing, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wife was so serious about teaching our children that
They withdrew their children for the public school system. The teachers and some of the parents went to jail for this. It produced a fight in a courtroom. You'll find it in the courtroom records of Detroit, where the brothers in the Nation of Islam got into a fight in the courtroom with the police and whooped them. The police chief died of a heart attack when he looked at and saw that his officers were whooped in the courtroom in 1935. What were they fighting for? They were fighting for the right to educate our own children. That rather than trying to find a way in their system, we withdrew our children from their system and established our own. And the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was home. Law enforcement came to her door. They were charging her and them with contributing to the delinquency of minors. And she told law enforcement, I will die before I send my children back to your schools. And when they said that we could not have a school in Michigan, we moved the Nation of Islam headquarters to Chicago. That's how that happened. Because they did not want to give us the freedom to teach our young. Well, we have a human right to teach our young. So when Malcolm was talking about human rights, that's the right upon which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stood. We will teach our young the truth, regardless to whom or what. If they tell us that you can't meet, when COVID hit, you can't meet in a building without vaccines, which were fake and we were refusing to take anyway. But fine, we met on Zoom. We reserve the right to teach our own, to rear our own, to raise our own and teach them the way that they should go. And as the scripture says, if you teach them the way that they should go, when they grow older, they will not depart from it. So even if they take time to explore the world, if the boy goes from bow tie and bean pie to some time in the street, he just may need to discover himself. He'll find himself. It's like a boomerang. He'll come back at some point, and that young man or that young woman who went from headpiece and garment to streetwear, or bow tie and bean pie to streetwear and street conduct, watch him grow. He's going to run into something that's going to bring them back home. Teach them the way that they should go. And when they grow older, they won't depart from it.
Just, one of the things when we talk about political education, if folks pick up the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare written by Kwame Nkrumah, one of the things he talks about are liberated zones, contested zones, and enemy-held zones. And of course, he's talking about it in the context of the African Revolution and pretty much in the context of the warfare. But one of the things that we've had to adapt to is the fact that even on our university campuses, we have to carve out a liberated space. We have to, in our communities, we have to carve out liberated spaces where we do self-determination, self-defense training, where we do political education training. And truthfully, even in our own minds, we have to carve out that liberated space to where we know this can be done and must be done.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on the panel. Thank the fellow panelists. And so Shakur, please fist salute. The way you presented the critique, criticism. I don't want to. I know I'll be passionate sometimes. So I don't seem like it was like no adversarial dialogue. But this is a phenomenal. I'm commending the people also in particular. But to be able to put each other's coattail, different. We're gonna have struggles and contradictions. And there was no. I picked up. There was no venom, no antagonism. Because a lot of this system tells us that for us to deal with contradictions, it got to be antagonistic. There are contradictions. They don't have to be antagonistic. So I commend you. The spirit, energy brought that up again. I'm adding to the old saying: still shopping, still, and men and women shopping men and women. Right on.
Okay. There was something just heavy on my mind when you mentioned liberated spaces on campus. I'm not sure that if folks are aware that in Florida, there are there's actual legislation now that is preventing a lot of professors like at Florida A&M, FAMU, et cetera, and so forth, from even having the word black in a Black History Month program. And they've taken some of these, like these petty bourgeois gatekeepers that our panelists were mentioning today, and with contradictions, they've taken them and put them inside of these universities, because the dean or the provost or whatever can be appointed by the Republican governor down there. So just to underline the point that, yeah, absolutely, in our contemporary moment, white status quo is white hegemony is trying to shut down independent, self-determined pedagogy. It's trying to shut down thinking like what is happening in this room right now. And so those spaces that you're talking about, sis, we can put that, just like we did right here this evening, we can continue to put these together. You know, it just has to be self-determined.
You know, our sister Nan is doing beautiful work in Burkina Faso. Her and the folks there have established the Thomas Sankara Center. I know on Instagram, the Burkina Books is something where they keep us informed to the work that's going on there, and have purchased land or looking to build even more in terms of educational aspect of it. So there's no joke about being in a liberated zone on your own land.
So with that, I want to wish everybody an excellent rest of your evening. You know, you'll probably be able to meet other people in the audience, like, you know, fellowship and all that kind of stuff, and organize, connect with like-minded folks. That's what this is about. Before you leave, on this little panel there, this little thing where you go out on the right and left-hand side, there's a QR code on a Xerox paper. Go to our Instagram page for the African United Front Oakland, and follow the page, because for the next events, we'll be posting information there. And there are some very, very profound solidarity statements from all around the world from some knowledgeable people that have been put together by Race for the Times and Blacks Radio. And so you'll enjoy that page a lot. So thank you for coming. Thank you to the Huey P. Newton Museum, the Black Panther Party Museum. Thank you to our esteemed panelists here, and, you know, especially our elder here, Brother Jabali, because he was a rank and file Panther. Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, bro. Yeah, thank you.